back.
Yeah, mic check, mic check, mic check. Man, we are back. We are officially live. Welcome to Kicking the Real podcast. I am your host, Andy Diosa. If you're a first time listener, thank you for being here. And as always, if you're a multi time listener, thank you for being here. I'm in a different setting. I'm not in my usual little studio in Los Angeles, but this is special because we are coming to you live from Rhode Island, Big 401, the Ocean State. And it's an episode that I had circled on the calendar that I couldn't wait to do. And the time finally got here and we lived it. We enjoyed it. We're going to call this episode the Local Legends Edition. I got
Hey,
with me today, a legend in his own way here in Rhode Island, a radio host, a podcast host, a DJ, a multi hat wearing dude that does it all. If you're familiar, you've heard the voice, you've seen the voice. I got none other than Mike DaSilva with me, my brother. Thanks for coming through the Kick It with me. How you feeling?
hey, man. No, it's a pleasure, bro. It's long overdue. Feeling good. I appreciate that intro. Gonna have to record that, gas myself up every day. But doing good, man. It's surreal. Last few days, last week, really leading up to what we experienced together last Saturday. But man, thank you for having me on, bro. It's an honor for such a special episode for you to be a part of it.
Yeah, man. It's one of those things that we knew what was happening. The date was circled. The Rhode Island FC home opener, Centreville Stadium, Pawtucket, Rhode Island, city that we are from, grew up in, ran the streets, literally running, playing soccer in the streets, running and playing in different areas. And just to have that all culminate with this amazing event of the stadium opener, it was a sensational thing. But I'm gonna start this how I do with all my guests because I like to give a little bit of background on who's here with me for the listeners that are not too familiar. So, Mike, tell me a little bit about your origin story and how you getting in the media space started. Whether it was like your beginning in radio or maybe that transitioning from playing to kind of get in that media space.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very long story, but to make it as short as I can, just obviously grew up playing soccer, loving sports, all sports, and like to talk, and like to communicate and loved people. So I always knew growing up my dream was to be in the media in some way, shape, or form. Obviously as a kid, I think we all dreamed of being on Sports Center or right. That was that show Dream Job back in the day on ESPN. I was like, damn, I wish I wasn't 12. I would go try out for that. But yeah, so out of high school, went to CCRI 2 years, local community college here in Rhode Island. Played soccer there, met a lot of great people. But after my 2 years was done, man, didn't really know which direction. I hadn't really planted my flag anywhere. I hadn't really got my foot in the door anywhere in the media world, and you know how difficult it is, Andy. I mean, you've been in it since the jump too. It's not necessarily an industry that is easy to find opportunities in. So thankfully, I had a friend, shout out to my boy, Cody Warnock, also from Pawtucket, with Tolman Tiger, former Tolman Tiger. He was interning at Hot 106 and we were at a party one day and he's like, yo, you're always DJing our house parties. You're always DJing. He's like, I know you love music. He's like, let me see if I can get you an internship at the station. I'm like, well, technically I'm not really in school right now. I'm taking a year off to figure stuff out. He's like, whatever. He's like, just go in there. Let's meet with them. That was in 2012. And from there, got the internship with the morning show at the time. And really, honestly, just never said no after that. I realized very quickly that's where I wanted to be. I loved being around the radio station. I loved communicating with people from Rhode Island, bringing a little bit of light to their days. So, everybody grinds, right? A lot of people, the majority of people, including me up to that point, work jobs that, you don't necessarily love, but you got to get up and do, got to pay the bills. So to have the opportunity to just be dumb as hell and talking to a piece of metal and try to make people laugh and smile and relate that to them and truly be there for them, because that's really what the biggest thing for me was. There's so many people to this day, even last Saturday at Centreville Stadium, you're running into people that listen and they're like, man, like I totally can relate to you when you talked about this, or, man, I really appreciated how open and honest you were about like real life stuff, about mental health, about the day-to-day grind. And it's hard to articulate that a lot of times. And fortunately, I'm not blessed with a lot of things in life, but I was blessed to be able to speak and articulate my thoughts pretty well. So radio ended up being my life for the last 12 years. And in that time, many other opportunities opened up to explain how I ended up here with, chatting with you. And in the soccer world is, obviously here in town, we prior to Rhode Island FC, we had New England Revolution. I partnered up with a couple of my colleagues, Tommy Quinlan and Nick Giuliano. We started a New England Soccer Weekly podcast, covering all things New England soccer and could be international, could really be anything. And then once Rhode Island FC became a part of the conversation, we knew right away, like, hey, especially me, where I was like, Andy, we grew up playing where we didn't have even soccer specific fields for the youth leagues to play in growing up. Those didn't come till after we were too old to play on them. You know what I mean? I know I think maybe when we were in high school, like Tolman played there and stuff. But prior to that, man, we were sharing baseball fields and old football fields and making the best of it. So I was like, hey, I got to be a part of this in one way or another. And we were able to land the radio broadcast for the home games last year at Burns Stadium at Bryant University. We did the commentary for that. And then, unfortunately, after this past fall, where my station was a part of some consolidations in the company and I was laid off, the radio outlet wasn't for me, wasn't available to me anymore. And the club wanted to get me involved still. So they have me DJing the home games. So yeah, it's again, a long-winded way of how I got here. But, the journey is the important part, says people will understand sometimes that, and Andy, I know you definitely relate to this. Like, you grinded, bro, and I always love when I see you post like just a kid from Pawtucket, because we didn't always have all of the opportunities or all of the, the things in place for us we had to go knock some walls down and make it happen ourselves. So being able to share that story and being able to see my boys prosper, in the biggest outlets in the world, really, is always a blessing to see. So shout out to you for real, cause you inspire dudes like me to be like, hey, when times are getting tough or you're doing something, you're not really sure of what direction or as if work's doing anymore. I see you knocking down more walls, more doors. And I'm like, man, I gotta go get it too. I can't stop now,
Yeah, for sure, man. That's a fact. And it's a lot of things that Mike said, that like longevity, especially longevity in radio and in this industry is something that you can't take for granted, because it shows a lot of things, more so than anything, dedication and the good work. And I think one of the things you mentioned that sticks out is obviously having the rapport and people being so familiar with either the voice or the face. And like, you're probably somebody that accompanied a lot of people on commutes to work, like for years and years of stuff. And all that stuff is very cool. And when you think about certain interviews with certain celebrities or going to events, like all that stuff is the cool part. And then you have a moment where you see people and you're like, oh, I related to this that has nothing maybe that you would necessarily think that this is the one that resonates with certain people. And that's when you're like, oh man, this is gratifying in so many more ways than just what people think is the coolness of like being around certain events and being in the industry. So that part is always great to hear, because I think that's not stuff that's seen unless you're in the community and people know. And now you're for sure in the community, and we'll get to everything that Saturday was. But it's true, man, especially from a city like Pawtucket, where we kind of just grinded and we continue to, because we know that's how we grew up, and that we don't really have many advantages or had many advantages of trying to do certain things. And the hustle is the hustle that we know. It's the same one that our friends have and our family members have. So that's just the mentality in general of how we get after it and continue to do so. So I'm glad that, obviously things unfortunately happen in a lot of industries, more so in the media industry and the way things change. But like I mentioned on the intro, my man wears many hats and he's available to kind of roll with the punches. And as we all really have displayed to do so. And that's why things are working on. That's why my guy is still in the mix and doing it well, man. So the same way you said, man, always been happy, always been proud, always been following, and we're gonna continue to keep being great, man. That's all we know.
Facts, bro. 100%. It's important because, then you got to think about who's watching. If for years and years, and especially in the media world, there's always people that they're always going to tell you they can do your job better than you. They can always tell you why aren't they doing this, and without the thoughts of the corporate limitations that are set upon us, right? Like I wish I had a lot of more freedom in my career that I wanted. I wish there were more doors that I could have opened for people, but a lot of times those weren't available for me to offer. So it's like I pushed it further than a lot of times I should have, really. You know what I mean? But I also understand the importance, especially in Rhode Island, like the importance of like what it means to have somebody that you consider a local celebrity, right? Like show you time of day and to give you, to lead by example, So anytime I have somebody from the younger generation, like a kid at the game the other day, he came up to me. He's like, "Oh man, like I was listening to you, and I always appreciated your like knowledge of music, and it made me want to get into like making my own music and producing and stuff." And it's like, to me, I'm just talking, not like in my head, like what I consider like just my dumb opinion, right? And I like to think that I'm not just spewing stuff out there, but it's crazy the things that people latch onto it, and I never took that for granted, and I don't, and my radio days can safe to say I'm far behind me and we're moving on to other things, but I'll always be appreciative and thankful for what it gave me and the opportunities that it opened up and what it's going to give me in the future. Because, the networking and the people that I've met through the years is definitely going to be a part of wherever it is I end up next, for a little teaser there.
Yeah, most definitely. And the people, and it's twofold, man. The people are going to be appreciative, and always you see people at stadium and be like, "Oh, that's Mike." Like I mentioned, you probably accompanied so many people in their morning commutes and just morning day-to-day lives, that it's like that stuff is always ingrained in people for your next step and wherever you do end up going. So that's great, man. Continue, keep your foot in the gas, man. Like I mentioned, that's all we know, and that's all we're going to keep doing. Now let's talk about Rhode Island FC, because as Pawtucket kids and you that are watching on YouTube see the hat. I got the Paw Sox hat on. Us having the Paw Sox growing up was, I think it took me until Saturday to finally rationalize how that distinction and how important it was to have them. Like, us just having them and having something to do was always cool growing up. And then the older you get, the more nostalgic you get and the more emotional involvement, perhaps. I think it made me that much more of a Red Sox fan, just knowing that the AAA team was down the street, that I've seen so many players like Red Sox legends, Pedroia, and many other people that started, through the ranks, and I got to see them before they got to Boston and became these huge players. But when the Paw Sox moved away, of course, we were all very unhappy about that, and just in general not having that team there. And then this Rhode Island FC project gets announced, and like you mentioned, we're soccer guys, so I think it hits the fabric of the city and the surrounding cities a bit more. Not to say that the sport of baseball isn't the same, but for soccer, for this community specifically, we know how big of a deal it is. But then there's a caveat of like, they're going to start their first season and then they're going to play in this stadium that's not necessarily their home stadium, because the one's getting constructed. So I wanted to bring it back a little bit to first year. For those that are not aware of how it went absolutely amazing for RIFC in their first year. They won the Eastern Conference Final. They went all the way to the USL Championship and lost there. But as a first-year team, being able to have that run, it's absolutely incredible. Shout out to Connell Smith and everything he was able to accomplish with that team in the first year. But since I wasn't here, I wasn't around the city itself and the state itself. What was that vibe like? Just knowing that the team was playing at Bryant and Smithfield, and there were still people going to games and whatnot, but it wasn't. It was almost like, okay, this first year, yeah, we're getting things done, but year two, when we're finally going to be able to be in that stadium in Pawtucket, is kind of where it really, really starts. How was that first year? How did you perceive it, being around the team and having the access that you guys did for the podcast?
It was interesting because obviously the first season wasn't planned to not be in the new stadium. It was. The plan was to play there off the jump, but obviously we're not going to get into it. We'll let local Rhode Island radio news, talk, handle that side of it. But some things just don't go as planned. All right. Sometimes they don't go as planned. So initially, right away when they started pitching it to other places in Rhode Island for them to play, I know Mayor Bob DaSilva in East Providence pushed heavily for them to play at Pierce Field, which any Rhode Islander that was a fan of soccer in the 90s and 2000s remembers. Rhode Island Stingrays. That was their home field. I remember watching them play against Benfica when they would come here. So that's honestly where I thought it was going to be, because he made such a push for it. I don't know the ins and outs. I know there was some logistics that just wasn't going to work for broadcasting purposes, and I think like maybe even locker room purposes for a professional league. Like there's certain standards that need to be met, and they didn't get met there. So realistically, it was going to have to probably be a university, because they have collegiate sports there. They have locker rooms and are equipped to broadcast the games. So that's how they ended up at Bryant University. And they did an amazing job. I mean, watching it and how fast it came together, bringing in extra seating, dressing it up to make it feel like it is Rhode Island FC's home and not just Bryant University's, was incredible. It really was. And that first game there last year was super exciting. They got the late equalizer. I was able to do the radio call for that with Michael Parkhurst, who is a co-founder of the club and Rhode Island soccer and U.S. soccer legend. MLS champion. I mean, you can go on and on about Parky, and he jumped on the broadcast with me in the second half, and it was cool to chop it up with him. And then we got to call that goal together, the first goal in club history. Was amazing. Was a super unique and fun experience. And then from there, it stayed pretty consistent. I mean, I feel as if like they did a good job with the Fan Fest outside of the Bryant University Stadium, where they had like the food trucks and, games for the kids and face painting and all that stuff. Like they really made it feel as if, yeah, you're still going to a professional soccer setting. Okay. This isn't just going to be like, your men's pickups Sunday league, where, you show up and people are pulling up lawn chairs. Like, no, they presented it really well for how quick they had to turn it around. And then, as the team started to really gel, they had some acquisitions they made throughout the season, and they really picked up the pace about midway through and then into the second half of the season, where we saw what happened. We saw that, they became the best team in the Eastern Conference, and they were arguably the best team in all of USL Championship the second half of last year. And they showed it right through the playoffs, and people were taking notice. I started to see more and more Rhode Island FC bumper stickers on cars. You started to see people, with scarves hanging out. And I had some of my friends who were not big into soccer hitting me up like, wait, so this team is legit? Like they're actually good? So I'm reading they're going to the championship, and I'm like, yeah, man, like pay attention, bro. You got to get behind this. This is all we got. For years, we rooted for, shout out to the Paw Sox, obviously. And you touched on that already, but like Boston teams, New England teams, this is Rhode Island, man. You got to rally behind it. Even if you're part of the vocal minority that was mad about everything to do with the stadium and whatever this, people were complaining about. It's time to pay attention, because these dudes are for real. The people that they bring in are bringing our soccer people. They're going to put together a team to win, not just to sell tickets, not just to throw out gimmicks at you that are going to get you to spend money to go and be a part of it because it's cool on social media. No, they want to put together a professional soccer team that is going to compete to win championships, because they know in Rhode Island, which is a top 5 market in viewership for international soccer, for the Premier League, in how diverse we are here, and in the cultures that are here, Andy, Colombian, Portuguese, Cape Verdean, like soccer is life for us, and it's not a big place. So if the majority of your people that live here prioritize this sport, it only makes sense that a club is going to work here. So they know they have to put a team together that is going to win. And that's what they did. So yeah, people took notice, man. And it was so fun to be on the inside and, helping out in any way we can with promotion, interviews, getting to know the players and, making them more like, you know, I don't want to, the term I'm going to use is humanize them, but like, you know, like you get to like chat with them and people get to know them more instead of just seeing them out in the field. And it was so fun. And I'm so thankful to be a part of it, you know, again this year, except in a way, no disrespect to Bryant, but in a way cooler place like Centreville Bank Stadium.
I think that's really what it comes down to. Like the building the winning mentality and the culture for sure is super important, especially in this region because we have been so spoiled to see teams win, especially people of our age for forever since we've been alive and been born. So you kind of take that along with what you mentioned in the culture and how rooted it is in Pawtucket and Rhode Island in general, and how many people here just genuinely love the sport. It almost seemed like it makes sense. Like soccer is the sport that's gonna stick there for sure. Now going to a championship game right in your first season, winning a trophy in your first season is amazing, and I love the fact that you walk into the stadium now and you see that on display. It's like a reminder of like, yeah, we did this in year one, but all of the attention and hype was leading up to May 3rd and this grand opening of Centreville Bank Stadium, which if you think about like when we were younger, it was you have to try to remember like what was there before. Like just I don't know, it's kind of hard to
It's hard to imagine now.
yeah, it's hard to imagine to describe it to people that are not aware with the area, that are just not aware with the city itself. But it was one of those things that I know for myself, and we talked about this Saturday, just thinking about the actual event because there's a lot of cool things that happen with RFC. And one thing I really love is that there's people like you that are involved. There's people that work for the team front office. Shout out to my boy Lacio, who I graduated high school, who works in ticketing. Like it's very anchored in community, which is the slogan, but it truly is. And I think that part is very, very important to kind of preach about how this is moving, how this project is moving, because it could be the new shiny thing that people might perceive, but it's like, nah, there's people involved that are invested not only just because of the team, but invested in because of what it represents for that community. So leading up to Saturday, I think it was just more so excitement about everything coming together and having that stadium opener. And I know you got to do like the open house and DJ that event the weekend before, a few days before. But what was your, I guess, let's say, early takeaway of maybe just the lead up to Saturday before you actually get in the stadium and see everything that we got to experience in that day?
Well, it's funny because, we were part of a lot of different rehearsals and, we had a lot of practices at the stadium leading up to it. So being there, you're just, and you're watching it, right, unfold. And, you're going through literally the whole opening like 15 times, like the whole 25-minute, opening you saw on match day. Like we were doing that over and over and over again because they care about perfection and they want the people that are going to the game to never forget that opening game. And I think they did that, they did a phenomenal job putting that together. But I did see a lot of excitement and the questions, right? The questions still waiting to be answered. What were the naysayers going to say? The people that were going to that stadium just to be a hater, like what were they going to say after leaving there? People complaining about the parking and people complaining about the location of the stadium and this, that, and the other thing, right? There was still some of that leading up to it. I'm gonna be honest, I haven't seen much of that since. And the people that were there, most of them wanted to be and were excited to be there and were still mind blown. But I think the people that were going there wanting to leave, being like, this and that, they kind of had to, stick their foot in their mouth because there wasn't much negativity to say. The energy was so positive and, the match ended in a 0-0 draw, but I felt like, for me at least, obviously I was working most of it, but also catching up with it felt like a big reunion. It felt like everybody was just there at like a massive city reunion. You flew in from LA. I had friends flying from Texas, that live there permanently now. And just that feeling validated everything that we talked about the last 6-7 years. All of the, putting my eggs all in one basket of backing this thing with my belief and passion that this is going to be great for the city of Pawtucket, for the state of Rhode Island. Like, when having no doubt, but still being able to walk away and being like, I had no doubt, but it's still cool that this really actually happened and it was such a success. So man, it was amazing. And I didn't stop smiling for 2 days, and I'm still tomorrow night, as we record this on Tuesday, the Revs are in town. What a crazy second ever game in a US Open Cup match, against, the team down the street. It's going to be insane. It's going to be absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I think there's just so many parts of like that coming together the way it did. First of all, the stadium is beautiful. They did a really, really good job with the venue within itself. Comfortable, which is very important when you go to stadiums, that there's just ample room for people to sit down and not feel like they're scrunched up like typically happens at sporting events. But just the fact, 10,700 was the attendance, like the energy was through the roof. And the weather, I mean, it couldn't have been more perfect weather that day. It was a beautiful sunny day until it wasn't for all of 7 minutes, and a crazy downpour just came up over the stadium. And then this beautiful rainbow, actually, the beautiful rainbow pops up over the stadium for those watching that.
Oh man, perfect.
Those watching on YouTube, that was a picture I took at the moment where I was standing at. So there were just so many things that happened. And like you mentioned, you get a 0-0 scoreless game, but it just felt like so much more. And I've been to a lot of stadium openers or inaugural games. I realized that more than I had mentioned, but I've been to many around MLS. I've been to some in NWSL, and this falls right in line because a lot of the times, most of the time, the scoreline ends up being irrelevant in the moments, right? And obviously, you always want to win, and you don't want to 0-0, you don't want to lose, but you put that aside and see the energy the team play with against a very good San Antonio team. You see the outcome of the fans and just everybody being there. You saw the line at the team store. Like there was never not a line at the team store. I think they wiped out damn near every piece of merch they had.
I think they did. And it was, by the first half ending, I think it was. They were like, damn, I was wearing a hat. I thought people were going to jump me for it.
I might have been one of those people. I might have been one of those people.
It was you. Yeah, you were part of it.
I'm still looking for it now. I'm like, all right, man. But it's just crazy because even just seeing the people with the RIFC gear, and you mentioned it, seeing bumper stickers, seeing jerseys, and that part is the cool thing where this is now going to become one of those recognizable brands and entities that, like, the more people that see it, of course, now people are going to say, oh, it's in Pawtucket now. We know we could go to the stadium. Now we know we could, buy a T-shirt, buy a jersey, buy a hat, buy whatever. And that's, how that grows organically. On top of the fact that, yeah, sure, you have to put a good product on the field. But what you said is everything to me, man. Like, I took no longer than 30 seconds, and me walking in the stadium, the first person I heard yell Andy, and I was like, oh, it's going to be one of those days. And it's exactly what I thought it was going to be, plus more.
Yeah.
As it kept going, I would do laps around the stadium. I would go up to the media area where you were, where Nick and Tom were doing the radio call, even in the press box, seeing people in the press box that some I hadn't even met before, but I knew online and stuff like that, or some that I hadn't seen in a while. It was just like a big reunion, seeing everybody. And then for me, it's like seeing people I went to school with and now seeing them with their kids at the stadium.
Yeah.
It's like now it all goes back again where you're like, man, this is really, we're getting older, which is great because we're aging in a great way, but we're kind of seeing this come back together for the community. So it was one of those things that, like, I knew I had to be here for, but in general, just it exceeded my expectations because of that local community feel. And I think for us that are from here, once again, it might be hard to explain to somebody that's not, but it's so Rhode Island, it's so Pawtucket, it's so us, how we grew up, how we came up, how we were in school, that it was a big reunion. And I think it will continue to be that way as it grows. And you bring up a good point with the Revs. Like, this US Open Cup game being the second home game, is just the energy behind that is cool, because now you're starting to try to see this organic rivalry per se, but just see people like, hey, we've all rooted for the Revs, right? We're all New Englanders at the end of the day, but it's like, this is Rhode Island. This is home.
Yeah.
Like, of course, we're going to be locked in with the Rhode Island FC and pushing that for the U.S. Open Cup game. So, man, it was a beautiful day, like you mentioned, bro. I think it is I haven't stopped like thinking about it and smiling and like trying to rationalize everything that happened, because it came together in such a perfect way.
Yeah, and a big takeaway, one of many for me from that day too, was, like you mentioned, the families. Our friends that have kids that are now the next generation. Like, for us, that was our parents taking us to McCoy. It was the field trips from Fallon, walking over to McCoy for an 11:30 a.m. or a noon first pitch, right? Just so we can get it in. They would make those games for the kids' field trips.
Yeah.
And all the times you'd sit out. I remember when they first redid McCoy, was it like 99, and you could sit out on the lawn out in center field. That was the coolest thing. Feel like you're in a picnic, except you got minor league baseball in front of you. All those memories that we created and we had in a special place is now just being done in a different place, that's newer and more modern, and a sport that we love and that fits the community, if better than baseball did. As great as it was to have the Paw Sox there, like soccer is, is our thing in that area. So it's going to be so cool, and the kids rocking the gear and hanging out with their friends and running around. It was just, it felt nostalgic, but like new at the same time. It's just such a strange thing to explain.
Yeah, and if you're, you mentioned it, if you're somebody that's a naysayer or trying to be a hater, like whatever, have your own opinions and it is what it is. But go out and check it out, man. That's all I advise.
Yeah.
If you feel a certain way, like go out and check it out, and I guarantee you're gonna see exactly what we're talking about and feel that, because it's one way to have that mentality before things come about and things are actually, real, because all you hear about is speculation, and then now you're like, oh man, this is actually here. Like I said, 10,700 people for the opening game in a stadium that's what 10,500 capacity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they opened up more space for standing room only.
Yeah, and it was full. It was full. It wasn't an exaggeration. There weren't the people were in there. The people were in there early. The people were around early. I got to see some tailgating lots, and there were people in tailgating lots too. And it's not going to be perfect. It's going to be a process, because what we see now is like phase one of what they have planned and how this is going to evolve over the years. But to have that opening the way they did in the fashion that it happened, with the people that were there, with just the energy that was there, and then whatever happens against the Revs on Wednesday, I mean, there's two things that you'll look back and say that opening week in Pawtucket was something special, and I'm sure they're going to have that as like a benchmark to kind of keep pushing this project forward and what they wanted to evolve into for the next 5-10 years, however many years.
Yeah, I mean, they've written the day after their first match, they hosted a rugby game. I think they had 2 rugby games there, games. I don't know what rugby calls it, but hey, if they're going to be bringing rugby to Pawtucket, I'll go check it out. Lacrosse, I know, is going to be there. They just announced their first international soccer game between Puerto Rico and I think Nicaragua, I believe, was who they're going to be playing against. I was going to double check that, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. So it's for the people who were, saying like, well, why should I care about this team, right? If you want to be one of those people who just are not going to give in, you don't want to care about Rhode Island FC, first of all, delete my number, I'll block you. It's all good. But second of all, it's like, all right, well, they're going to be bringing more stuff to the stadium, that in a place that we didn't have before, we could do concerts and other events, people that are into lacrosse, if you're into rugby, if you're into, I'm sure they're going to be having some, Rhode Island Interscholastic is going to be involved in hosting some state tournament games there for football, or it's going to be a place that memories are going to be made, and not just for Rhode Island FC as much as it will for guys like for you and I and a lot of other people.
That's important, man. I think that part is super important, and maybe not even talked about enough, because I have friends that have kids that already played on the field, and that that they had at the open house and stuff like that. So I had friends that played on the field for Providence City. They had the game. Yep. So it's like, you have just these moments already that are happening, and it's not just going to be RIFC based. It's going to be really for the community and see. And once again, that's exactly what McCoy was, man. When you have high school games there, when you have teams that play at Paris Style, the field right next to it, and 4th of July and different things of that nature for McCoy, like it's exactly like you mentioned. It's happening, just happening in a different setting for a different generation, I guess, but still happening here.
And there will be fireworks at Centreville Bank Stadium this summer. I know that was always, living as a kid in Pawtucket, going back as an adult and living there for almost a decade down the street from McCoy Stadium, I knew those first few years, after the Paw Sox left and the pandemic and McCoy being empty and the no lights on all summer, it was weird. They still would do the fireworks there. And I know some people were concerned about that. Like, well, if they knock down McCoy, where are we going to get our fireworks? So we've been watching here in this spot for 50 years, or however long it's been. Centreville Bank Stadium is going to have fireworks in that weekend. July, I think the match is July 5th. at home that game, they're going to have fireworks there. So that's going to fill that void, and it's down the street. So a lot of people will still be able to see them from their backyard.
Yeah. Instead of looking this way, you just turn around and look the other way.
Turn around and look the other way, right across the river.
We try to tell you guys it's not a big state, but we got a lot of heart and stuff over here. A lot of
Oh yeah.
No, I love that, man. It's just it's so cool to see, bro. And it's obviously one thing to see it or follow it from afar, and then another thing to be here and experience that. So, and true story, I was walking around the stadium with Mike for a little bit, and he got stopped and was like, "Yo, somebody was texting me talking about the DJ was killing it." And this is the type of stuff like where now this is Mike DJing the RSC. This is Mike doing Providence Friars women's basketball as well, and things of that nature where you're still ingrained in the culture, which is super cool. So if you do ever get a chance to go to the stadium, please do. If you hear music at the stadium, it's probably going to be coming from Mike killing it as usual.
Unless it's bad music, then that's my day off. Then you can blame whoever was up in the control room, whatever playlist they got going on.
Whoever was messing around with the buttons up there. But no, it's just a very, very cool thing, and I'm happy to see that you're involved in it, because it makes me that much more excited to follow and to hopefully come back, for other games down the road. And as long as it's going to keep running, always have a spot to come back to at home and be like, man, I remember that first game at San Antonio, never going to forget it. And that's really what the memories that they want to create and that we want to have to pass along, man, because this is all about keeping this local and keeping this for Pawtucket and keeping this for Rhode Island. And I don't want to say just Pawtucket, because it is for Rhode Island.
Yeah, it's for Rhode Island. Yeah,
very important too. Like, this is for the whole state, it's for the region. Like, whoever wants to come out, is not just for the city, but we're talking as local legends who have that sense of pride for Pawtucket and knowing how much it means to us specifically. But don't get us wrong, this is for the whole state. Everybody come tap in. Whatever part of Rhode Island you're in, please come tap in with the stadium, because it's going to be worth it for sure.
Yeah, and we're taking any bandwagons, out of state people. If you don't have a place to claim, come to Rhode Island FC. We'll take you. All right, Centreville Bank Stadium is open to everybody. So if you wanna, the only thing is, don't come in here and be a hater. All right, haters, keep going. Haters, keep going down to Foxbar. All right, you can go hate. They've been hating there for damn near 30 years. You can go join that fan base. They're very upset. Rhode Island FC, though, it's all love, baby. It's all love.
And shout out to the diehard Revs fans who will be in the building at Centreville Bank Stadium for this RIFC Revs game, U.S. Open Cup, which in itself has a bit of history, because the U.S. Open Cup has a home, obviously, in Pawtucket, Rhode Island from years back, and how that all originated. So even that part is, I'll tell you a secret. I was supposed to fly back to LA today, and as soon as that game got announced, I was like, I need to switch this flight, and I extended it a few days. So
I'm glad that you did, man. It gives us, gives us 2 for 2 on the first 2 games here. Hopefully, Rhode Island FC gets a dub, and then we get to witness the first win together too.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be a vibe in there, and like I said, the Revs fans will be there. So hopefully they enjoy and enjoy the atmosphere and enjoy the stadium and be able to see this event for New England here in Rhode Island. Mike, man, it's been a pleasure. Anything else you have on your mind before I let you go? Because I forgot to mention the most important hat that Mike wears is he's the dad of a recently. I don't want to say newborn anymore. I guess I don't know what the term.
9 months, like I don't know if 9 months is still considered newborn. Maybe, I don't know. It feels like she's still newborn. It feels like yesterday. But thank you, man. Yeah, my baby girl Lucia, she is she's the best. And don't forget that on Saturday don't think I wasn't looking around the stadium thinking about the memories I'm going to make there with her.
Yes,
and if God willing, more children that we have in the future. And yeah, it's another, hits you in a different way too. When you see your friends' kids, and then my daughter is obviously too young, but when she's old enough to think about the memories that will be there, that we'll be making there, is amazing. But overall, man, thank you so much for having me on, bro. It felt special. I'm so thankful. Not that I didn't think you wouldn't, because I just know you. I knew you would be in town for game 1, but I'm thankful that you were. We have so many mutual friends, and a lot of them are your family members, and getting to see everybody together and celebrate, it just felt like a big celebration, and it was super dope. And I'm thankful for that, and I'm thankful for our friendship, obviously, personally, professionally, and I'm thrilled to see where the rest of this thing goes, man, for sure.
We locked in, man, forever. Like
yes, sir.
We have that moment, and we're going to continue to build those. Please tap in with Mike, follow him. I'll make sure his stuff is tagged in the episode descriptions. And if you're at the stadium, tune out to the music. If it's good, if it's bad, Mike was not there. So, but it won't be bad if he is there. So we already know that confidently.
I think they got me on the concourse going forward. So I'll be pretty much right when you walk in. The plan is right when you walk through those gates. I'm going to be right in front of you. Bang, right in front of the field. So yeah, come say what up. Come dap me up. I'll only take requests if the songs are good. If they're trash, sorry. I'll tell you I'm going to play them, but I won't. I'm just going to be honest with you.
That's a man of the people right there. And
yes, sir.
Pull up on him with the good energy, pull up on RAFC, pull up to the stadium, pull up to the bucket, and keep being great, man. Please enjoy this. Thanks for tapping in. Until the next time, I'll check y'all out. Peace.